This is Rabbi Sherbow coming to you live and direct from Sfat, Israel, where it is 3:01 in the morning, and it is July 9th, 2020. Glad to have you with us. And I'm here with my co-hosts, Terry Hayes and Scotty Helton. Wave, Scotty. There he is. And we have Hans here, and Martha, and Moella, and Gloria, and Dan as usual. Thank you so much, Dan, for helping us out and getting this all done. And let's see, I think I want speaker view in Facebook, so I'm going to click that. All righty. We are there live in Facebook. Also, any of you watching or come on board in Facebook, below my picture there, you can come join our Zoom room if you want. Just come on in and join us. You know, a lot of things, I always spend a lot of time thinking about what the heck am I going to do when I get up here in front of people. And I studied a bunch of different things this week, trying to figure out what am I going to talk about? What am I going to talk about? I do things just a teeny bit different than other people do. And what is that? We have people teaching the Chumash, teaching Pirkei Avot, teaching the sayings of the fathers, teaching the Mesilat Yesharim. They're good teachers. And I'm not in competition with them, and they're not in competition with me, but you don't need 3 or 4 people teaching you the same thing all the time. I don't know about you guys, but for me, it gets a little boring when that happens. You're just going over and over and over stuff. And so I like to reach down and see if I can find something that pertains to Noahides, that this is daily information that is needed in the walking of your life. And I was going through different groups, and I found a comment there. And this, by the way, was a comment by Terry Hayes. I'm going to read it thing. It's got 5 points in it. I'm going to read it through, and Terry's going to talk a little bit about it, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about it, because I think it's a very good question. It comes up all the time. What does God-fearing mean? What does fear of God mean? And a bunch of things like that, and you need to know what it is. There's different levels of fear. There's only one level of love of God, but some of it's hard to get there sometimes in your heart, feeling that particular love that God would like to have us, how the love that we're supposed to return to him. So here's the quote. I sit here this morning going through the above mentioned commentaries in the Hirsch Chumash, and I see several things. I'm in the need of being taught, in quotation marks, the fear of God, not about the fear of God. That belief in God's existence is a carryover of my former religion based on belief. Coming to the knowledge of the oneness of God is the door that led me out of my former religion, and now it is time to take that to the next step, and that is making the one true God my God, instead of just believing, but living it. And then there's quotation marks here. My duty is to devote every moment of my life to his service alone, end quote. My duty and service is a Sheva mitzvot in all their details. And then he quotes from Rabbi Hirsch. In other words, the essential thing is not the knowledge of God's existence, but the awareness and the acknowledgement that he is my God. Terry's really good at bringing up things that get pretty deep. And I wanted to talk about this today some. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Terry for a little minute and maybe give us a little background why this even came up and what's going on with it. Go ahead, Terry.
Well, actually, the above mentioned quotes is in the conversation from another fellow Noahide. And I took some time to look them up in my Chumash, and it comes from the quotes they're mentioned comes from a commentary on Exodus 20, where Hashem says, "I am Hashem," right there in the first part of the 10 sayings. And then that's where it talks about not believing in just in Hashem, but Hashem being your God, taking it that next step. And then the one about knowing the fear of God comes from, and I'll read this. I'm going to read from Rabbi Hirsch's Chumash on Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 10. It says, the day, and he's speaking to Israel. He is speaking to Israel. The day that you stood before God, your God, at Horeb, when God said to me, well, I guess it's Moses speaking to Israel, but, God spoke this to Moses as well. Says, assemble this people for me. I will let them hear my words so that they may learn to fear me all the days of their lives on earth, and that they teach their children accordingly. Now, what he says about this in the commentary, part of the commentary, he says, but this fear, this is from Rabbi Hirsch, but this fear of God, the Jewish fear of God, is not a product of vague feelings and moods. The fear of God must be taught and learned. The Torah repeatedly spoke. And he goes on, he says, the fear of God is acquired through learning and training. It is a mental science and a moral art. And both of these together comprise of the concept, the fear of God. And so as I was looking at that, I'll be honest with you, it's the first time I'd come across the I guess you say ideology or the teaching of that the fear of God must be taught and learned. And then when you go back, and I see that now when I go back and look at the verse where it says, I will let them hear my words so they may learn to fear me. And I've heard a lot all my life about the fear of God, but I can't say that I've ever been taught to fear God. And that was a new concept for me.
Yes, that's a new concept for everybody, actually. It was new for me as I came back to my Jewish roots and started doing working within that. And then I was taught, and I get it.
All on today.
Then I was taught that, let's see, what do we got here? We got a mic on that shouldn't be on. Everybody, make sure your mics are on mute, please. Okay, there we go. Hi, Angela. Hi, Zechia. Good to see you. All right, let me go back to the fear of God. I said, hey, why should I fear God? He created me. What do I have to fear from him? And I had to go learn what it was that what was the thing that I truly, truly needed to learn? Well, there's different kinds of fear. There's the fear of God in a very normal, human, rational sense of fear. That's the kind of fear that, like you may walk by an animal that you fear because it might bite you, or your fear of being punished by God for something, which is generally taught by all the other religions. Fear God, he's going to punish you. He's going to make things bad for you because you are a bad boy or a bad woman or whatever. And I realized very soon that that is not the fear of God that the Torah talks about. That's the fear of the world, the fear that we have in everyday things. And if that's why we're connected with God, because we're afraid of punishment, we're not even close to being connected properly with him. Not even close. But it's a good start because you can learn from there. If you have a fear of punishment, that he will punish you, that's good. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's the first step in learning what the fear of God is. It took me 2 times reading a book called the Tanya to start to get an inkling of the rest of it. Sometimes I'm a little hard-headed, and so I got to read things 2, 3, 4, 5 times before I can get everything the way that I would like to understand it, so I can talk about it. Because if I can't understand it, I can't talk about it. So, being taught the fear of God was something that I needed. And so I learned it by saying God's a bad guy. And I mean, he's a guy that's going to punish me if I don't do what he says to do. If that's the case, then I'm in trouble because I don't fear punishment from him. I fear not knowing enough. I feel not having a good relationship with him, but fear of punishment, I do not fear. Why don't I fear punishment from God? Because I wasn't living a life that needed punishment. I wasn't a murderer. I wasn't a thief. I wasn't a liar. You know, let's go down the checklist. Most of us live lives that we don't need to be worried about fear of punishment. So what's the next level of fear? Fearing that I am not having a good enough relationship with God, that's a fear. How do you not have a good enough relationship with God? God's with us all the time. He does everything with us. He's always there. He's always watching over us. But if we don't acknowledge that point, and it says in the quote from Rabbi Hirsch at the bottom, it says, in other words, the essential thing is not the knowledge of God's existence, but the awareness and the acknowledgement that he is my God. That you have to absolutely say to God and yourself, yes, he is my God. He is my God. And since he's my God, I have to think about him in everything I do. That's what I have to do. I have to teach myself and learn from what others have to say. I have to learn how to keep that connection at all times with him. I have to learn to always think about him first. What does this do if I learn to fear him that way? It produces the love in me for him. When we meet a man or a woman and we're falling in love and we get married and we've acknowledged there's a relationship with this other person. We know the person exists, but we have to then become acknowledge that the other person now is not, I'm not the first one in my life anymore. That other person is the first one I think about. That means when you go out to do something, let's say you just run to the store and you're picking something up for yourself and you say, well, you know what? I saw we're missing something in the cat. I didn't see a whole lot of sugar. Maybe I'll pick up some sugar too, because I know that my wife's going to want sugar or my husband's going to want his coffee. And I noticed he was running low. So I'm out. I'm picking up stuff. I might as well pick that up too. That is thinking about the other person while you're thinking about yourself at all times. So it's a cooperative thinking. It's a thinking together. I read a great thing one time and they used taking out the trash as an example. I may have used it before. But there's 3 levels of people taking out trash. There's a one level where people say, hey, like your wife, your husband says, the wife usually says to the husband, trash needs to go out. And the husband says, okay, I'll get to it. And he doesn't even think about it again. And the wife comes again and says, you know, the trash is starting to smell a little bit. Isn't it about time to take it out? Yeah, I'll get to it. Now, you know it has to go out. You know you're supposed to do it. But you put it off till you want to do it. or you hear the tone in your wife's voice that if you don't get up and take it out now, there's going to be anger there. And so we think about that with God. So we have that level of, that's fear of punishment, essentially. Then there's the level of, it's my job to take the trash out. I'm going downstairs. I'll say to him, you want me to take the trash out? You ask. And you wait for an answer, yes. And the third level is, well, I'm going out, the trash looks a little full. I just pull that trash bag out, put a new trash bag in, and take it out with me. That's the highest level of awareness you can have of the other person in your life when you're constantly doing that. You constantly think about them along with you. And then when you go to do something, you say to yourself, would my wife or my husband want me to do this? Does it add to our relationship or take away from our relationship? That is a level of fear that is not fear of punishment. It's a fear of maintaining a good relationship. So when we have that, that's a part of love. It's a part of what we do, and we're supposed to have every single day. And of God, the love of God is you wake up every morning and God should be the first thing you think about. You have to train yourself. It's not like, okay, I'm going to think about all the other things I got to do today and then think about your God. It's laying in bed there, even if you're next to your other half, and you start thinking about, I got to get up, got to make the kids lunch, got to run to the store, got to do this today, got to do the wash today, If that's the first thing you're thinking about, usually those things are fear of not getting something done, fear of anger from somebody, fear of that type of fear. But if the first thing you do, and I say it all the time, there's the Modeh Ani prayer that should be the first thing in everybody's head as you start to wake up. And you have to train yourself to do it. And I kind of tell you the truth, I don't do it every morning. I'm still working on it. It's years. And I still, if I go to sleep with a problem in my head and I wake up in the morning, my mind is usually on that same problem. So I'm not thinking of God first. But if I say the bedtime, I say Shema at night before I go to bed, and I focus on that and then go to sleep. And in the morning, I remember Modeh Ani. So I know how I work. And I get out of bed, I go through my morning ritual and the things I have to do, and I get my coffee and do my morning prayers, the morning blessings and the morning prayers. And then I'm about to start my day. My first thought isn't, oh, what do I got to do today? My first thought is, how am I going to maintain my contact with God all day long as I'm doing these things? How am I going to make sure that when I do the things, He is shown number one? Now, I'm not a really neat dresser. I'm a little sloppy, okay? And if I'm going out of the house, and Shira's not here right now, she's in Texas, so I don't go out very much out of the house, but when I do, I just throw something on, and I maybe didn't tuck my shirt in, and my hair's not combed right or something, and I go out of the house. But I try not to do that. When she's here, I will never do that. Why? Not from fear of punishment. She's my wife. And when people see me on the street, I want her to look at me and say, that's Shira's husband. He's dressed properly. His nose isn't dirty. His hat's on right. Because she's my wife and I'm representing her. So the same thing with God. This is the important thing with us. Now, here where I live, you walk around and you can tell who's hooked to God and who isn't, because everybody's hooked to God has at least a little yarmulke on. Most of the Sephardim wear they wear this. If they're people that go to pray all the time like they're supposed to. And then you got the black hats. And you got the black hats like this, and you got the black hats, little different. And then you got the furry big hats. Everybody's got a different hat. That just tells you what rabbi you study under is all that is. But when you go out of the house, you can look at somebody and see who they are. And you know that they represent God and they represent a particular Rebbe that they're following. And when they do something stupid, and when they talk not nice, it reflects back on their rabbi, their Rebbe, and it reflects back on their family, their home. So that when we start working on that and knowing that everything we do and say, every facial expression we make, every sigh we take, reflects back on our God and our families. When you start that, then the real love starts to come up. And what happens is when you do something stupid, and that's the way I know how to put it, you feel embarrassed before God. You actually feel embarrassed before God. And it is if that happens to you, it's a big accomplishment. Let me tell you, if you do something and you feel bad before God, embarrassed before God, you're a very high level of love of God. Who do you get when you do something stupid or you say something stupid and you don't have the love of God? So maybe you're embarrassed in front of your wife or your kids or something like that. But when you feel embarrassed before God, wow. That's a high level. And everybody can get there. It just means you have to work on it. You can't take God for granted. He can't, look, when I go out to my car in the morning, I don't, I unlock the cars, I'm coming down, walk right around, hop in, start it up and go. But you know what's right across the street from me? I look down on all of the Kinneret, the Sea of Galilee, the Golan Heights. I look down on all the things in between because we're high up. So I look down at all the things in between. And you know how many times I actually stop and take a look? I take it for granted. It's there. I've gotten used to it. And when people come to visit, they look at it and say, wow, look at the view you got. But I'm taking it for granted because it's every day. And that's sometimes we do that with God also. We hop out of bed in the morning, we're feeling good. Man, we're going to have another good day with God. And you just go on and you just don't even think about him too much until it's time to say a prayer or want something or thank him for something. You know, the Baal Shem Tov, one of his biggest things that he did when he would go up to people and ask them, how are things going? How are things going? And they would always say, oh, it's all right. You know, if it was a Jewish person, he always pushed them to say, thank you, God. Baruch Hashem, everything is good. And he would spend an hour talking to somebody, asking them all kinds of questions so that would come out of their mouth. Baruch Hashem. Now, he wasn't at that time so famous that everybody knew what to answer him because he was just an itinerant going from town to town. And so, but that's what he taught people. And there's a whole long story, but I think I told it a few weeks ago. The point is, he couldn't understand why people didn't say Baruch Hashem every time people asked them what was going on. Baruch Hashem means bless the Lord. That's what it means. Bless the Lord. It means everything's okay. Even if it's not okay, it's okay. And that's a very important thing to remember. Now, let's going back to what we're talking about here. 2 levels of fear. The fear of punishment, and then the fear of I didn't do what God wanted me to do in the right way. That's a different kind of fear. Now, how do you get this higher level of fear? There's only one way. You got to know what God wants, not what you think he wants or what somebody told you he wants. You have to know what he wants. How do you do that? It says, and I had a bunch of bookmarks. My computer restarted and I lost them all. But essentially, it says that the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. The beginning of wisdom is the fear of God. What does that mean? The wisdom that you learn by studying, even if you study 15 minutes a day, the more you learn about God and who he is, then the fear you have of him becomes to the point where I'm embarrassed, or you don't have to fear retribution from God. You've advanced above that. You don't have to fear punishment from him. We all know that if we're focused on the God of Israel, the Creator, that he's a very loving, forgiving God. And if you make a mistake, you got to know you made the mistake, and you go to him and say, I'm sorry, I made the mistake, and you change your ways. The very important thing here is knowing who he is. Now, Terry says here, the belief in God's existence carry over my former religion based on belief. Yes. And there are some people out there that know there's only one God. The phenomenon of changing a human being and using that as a representation of God is a very new phenomenon, actually. I think it's only a couple 100 years old, if I remember right. Before that, everybody knew there was one God, and there was what they called the Son of God. They didn't make one out of him. That happened not too long ago, metaphorically speaking, a couple 100 years, I think. But there were people that still continued believing in that there was the Son of God and God, and they were separate. They weren't one entity. There was a Messiah, and there was the Son of, and there was God. So the people that didn't get all involved in raising up a human being to the status of God didn't have to relearn anything. But a lot of people out there have to relearn. And, I've heard people, I remember a good friend of Shira's years and years ago, I know when I die, I'm just going to be able to crawl up in his lap and he's giving me a hug. I'm going to feel so good, which actually is, what do they call that? Amorphism or something like that. Something you're giving God characteristics of a human being.
Anthropomorphism.
Thank you very much. Forget it. You said it. I fall up all over the place on that particular word. But we give God human characteristics, but he allows us to do that. He doesn't call that like his right hand, his strong right arm, even the emotions, anger and impatience and love and things like that. He is those things. He is those things, but he's not them individually. So when you know who God is and you realize that he is everything and we're just a part of him, and so is the rest of the world, then we get to a more understanding way of who God is. And when we start to study, and we study I love the way Terry puts it. I think that's you, Terry. My duty and service is to Sheva Mitzvot in all their details, because it doesn't have quotation marks on it. This, when you realize that, when you realize that that's the thing in your life, and I guess in quotes is from someone else, it says, my duty is to devote every moment of my life to his service alone. That is great. That's understanding. It also shows a love for him. Terry, you need the mic?
Oh, yeah, the quotations is from Rabbi Hirsch, but yeah, one of the things I've been pondering on here lately is so many Noahides dwell on things outside of the seven. Those things that are outside the seven that may be permissible, it's not our duty. And that's something I've been pondering on is, we have a king, we have a God, we have duties. This is what we're supposed to do for him in his service. And when we do these other things, it's not our duty. even though the permissible, it's not our duty. And sometimes I think people will get sidestepped and get more concerned of things that are not their duty. And so I'm trying to bring myself to make sure that I know what my duty is, because that's what should be first in my relationship with him.
That is absolutely true. And that's a beautiful way of putting it. And why you just brought to mind something that one of the book tabs I have open, I'm looking for it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it here. It comes from the Jewish Encyclopedia. I was looking up fear of God, and let's see, I don't know where it was, but I really would like to get to it. I found out something very interesting, and it's something that we all need to understand, that the meanings of word change over the time. And this is, where the heck is this thing? Comes from, there's a great history here, but you can't search it, I don't think. Gosh, you never realize how many websites you look at. And they put down every page you hit in the website in your history here. And it comes from, if I'm going to try to remember it now. It comes from Isaiah 8, 11 and 12, or 12 and 13. You got that handy there, Terry?
Yeah, hold on a second here.
Okay. Meanwhile,
Just happen to have my art scroll Isaiah here. You said
just happened.
Isaiah 8.
8, I think it was 11 and 12 or 12 and 13. If you read it for me.
Hold on, let me find it here.
I will remember. In the meantime, I'm still looking for this quote because it's really, really good.
You said 8:11.
I think it's 12 and 13.
Hold on.
Has it?
Let me make sure. Okay, yeah, I'm in Isaiah 8, verse 11 says,
How's it start?
"For thus says Hashem to me, with a strong hand he admonishes me not to follow the way of this people."
Ah, beautiful. That's the place I'm looking for. Read the next verse.
Verse 12, "Do not speak of cabal, for everything this people speaks of is cabal. Do not fear what they fear. Do not attribute strength to them."
Oh boy, this falls right into what we're going through right now in the world, by the way. It's pretty cool. And I just, by doing another search, I ended up with that. And I'm going to get it up in front of me again, because read those two verses again, please.
It says, starting verse 11, "For thus said Hashem to me with a strong hand. He admonished me not to follow the way of this people, but to say, do not speak of cabal, for everything this people speaks of is a cabal. Do not fear what they fear. Do not attribute strength to them."
What does 13 say?
And 13 says, "Hashem, master of legions, him shall you sanctify. He is your reverence, and he gives you strength."
Right. Okay. Now you were going to go on and read a commentary?
Well, real quick, just down here in the commentary, it says, "Now God instructs Isaiah not to follow this rebellious group. Others maintain that this refers to the rebellion that would be led," and it goes on and talks about a little bit of the
Yeah.
but it's basically not to follow the rebellious group.
Okay. Let me tell you how the Jewish Encyclopedia put it, which was published in 1907, I think. They put in the Chabad website, it says on 12, "You shall not call a band everything that this people calls a band, and you shall not fear what it fears nor attribute it to it." In 1907, they translated the word kesher, which is kesher is a connection, as conspiracy. So it read, "You shall not call a conspiracy everything that everybody else calls a conspiracy. You shall not fear the conspiracy or give it strength." Why? The Lord of hosts, him shall you fear. He is your fear, and he gives you strength. Why did I take this out? What's going on in the world today? Conspiracy. And everybody's jumping on this conspiracy thing. They spend hours reading about it. They spend hours talking about it. That's all anybody wants to talk about. Over coffee, over the telephone, over the internet. It's all this gets reported on by the news. Conspiracy. And here we have something from Ishayahu, from Isaiah, that says, number 11, so the Lord has spoken to me with overwhelming power of prophecy. He admonished me from going the way of this people, saying, you shall not call a band. And when they say band, and you used a different word, I think, in the thing. Sorry.
It says cabal.
Cabal. A cabal is like a conspiracy. That's exactly what it is. A cabal is a conspiracy. The word is kesher. Tumranun kesher. It's a involved, knotted thing. We're not supposed to fear it. We're only supposed to fear God. When we get into the fear mode of what's going on in the world and what people are doing in the world, we've forgotten who God is. We've forgotten that he's the guy in control. Not us, not all those people running their mouths, not the Clintons, not the Bill Gates, and not the Donald Trumps, and not the Dr. Fauci, and nobody. They're not in control of nothing. Everybody gets their 15 minutes as being in the news. Who said that? Andy Warhol? 15 minutes of fame and glory. Everybody gets it. Well, guess what? God's fame and glory is eternal. So why on earth would you get involved with somebody who has 15 minutes of it when you have eternity, and eternity is God, and he's with you and you're with him? This is an important point to remember. And when everybody starts with me, I'll listen to what they have to say, because I know they got to get it out of their mouth. They got to get it out of their head. And they say to me, what do you think? I said, I'll tell you what I think. God's in control. I'm not worried about it. And everybody, you can see their faces. It's like I let the air out of their balloon or something. But I just won't talk about it. I won't get involved about it. There's no reason to. I'm not going to get involved in all these fairy tales about everybody's going to be microchipped with a vaccine and all that kind of stuff. It just ain't going to work that way for this boy. I know who's in control. I know who's going to take care of things. And I'm confident of it. So I just keep doing my business, doing what he wants me to do. What does he want me to do? I'm not talking about getting on the air here and teaching or anything like that. I'm talking about every minute of my life, what he asks me to do, whether it's wash my hands, whether it's say a prayer, whether it's treat somebody in a proper way, whatever it is. I had a very interesting experience today. A young woman called me, and she wanted to talk about a particular guy who I didn't understand. I thought this was for a job interview. They were trying to find out what kind of person he was for a job interview. And finally I said to her, I says, this doesn't sound like a job interview phone call. Oh, she says, oh, no. This is a shidduch phone call, a matchmaking phone call. This woman was put together with him. He's right now in America, and she's here in Israel. And she was asking me some pretty personal questions about the young man. And yeah, he's in his mid-40s, never been married. And I know him pretty well. And I knew if I answered the questions that I knew was 100% truthful, that would be it. She would just hang up the phone, call him up, and say, forget it. So I had to answer her in a way that was not lying to her, but I couldn't come straight out and tell the whole truth. In the end, I just suggested, why don't you just get on Skype and talk to him? Because the questions she's asking, of course, were very important questions. Was he romantic? How would I know if he's romantic or not? Is he a warm person? Well, I don't know what she meant by warm. That's a relative thing. So, but I was thinking the whole time, how would God want me to put this? How would God want me to put this? Because I didn't want to step into a lie, but I didn't want to tell her something that would give her false hopes also. So why did I bring that up? This is the way we're supposed to handle things. And we learn also that doing what God wants us to do can also mean you don't have to tell the truth exactly at that moment. You know, friend walks up to you and says, how do you like my new haircut? And you're thinking, he paid for that. But you can't say that to him because he likes it. So you say, it looks great. Well, for him, it does look great. You know, so you're not really lying, but you don't come out and say, oh my goodness, tell me who the barber is. I never want to go to him. You know, you just don't want to do that. So there's ways you can, if you think about how God wants you to handle things, there's ways to do it. And this conspiracy thing, put it to bed. It'll eventually be over with. Nothing stays forever except God. So, okay, what do? There's a big thing. Today's a fast day, the 17th of Tammuz. It's the day that the Second Temple walls were breached. And 40 days later, the 9th of Av is when the temple was destroyed by the Romans. And there's been discussions going on for the last 2 weeks, who should fast and who shouldn't fast. Normally, everybody fasts. And there are people that shouldn't fast, you know, pregnant women and older people, depending on their health. And there's a lot of people that shouldn't fast because it's not good for them. People with high blood pressure, people with diabetes, things like that. But I walked away from all this information I'm getting, and these are from some pretty heavy rabbis. They cut things into age groups. The last age group is 65 to 70. So I wrote one of my letters, what, nobody lives past 70? That's it, 65 to 70. If you're over 70, you're exempt. And he says, if you're over 70, you figure it out for yourself, whether you should fast or not. Well, I know that I have a couple of health problems that I really shouldn't do a 25-hour fast. I'm going to have to eat something in between and everything. I know that it's okay. God's not going to come down and, you know, smack me in the face or stamp on my head or hit me with lightning. Because that's the God I love and that's the God I know. But I didn't know there was an exemption over 70. Never been here before, you know. So when we study and learn what God wants from us, and we know, you know, I've met plenty of Noahides that say, I just want to go along. I go along with my life. I don't have to do all this studying. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. And I say, well, okay, that's okay. And it is okay. And some people aren't capable of learning to that level. But they are capable of loving God. And they are in love with God. And you too, if you fear disappointing God, if you fear not doing what he wants done for the reason that you're going to be embarrassed in front of him, then guess what? That's about the highest level you can get to. You're going to have that deep love. You're going to feel good when you wake up in the morning. You're going to feel good when you go to bed at night, no matter what kind of day you had. You know why? Because of I know this sounds really silly, but this is how I started and how I got deeper in love with God. When I would say the bedtime Shema and I put my head on the pillow, guess who I was resting upon with my head? I said God. I can use those. Go ahead, Scotty, say the word.
Anthropomorphism.
Yes, I can use them too. I could use them too. And you know what? It's a comforting feeling. But I didn't think he was like an old grandfather sitting there, okay, Pesach, I'm going to rock you to sleep, or anything like that. I just knew that he was there 24/7 watching over me. He was going to take my soul when I went to sleep, and he's going to give it back to me in the morning. And actually, at my age, I'm surprised every morning. And it's fun. But it's just a great thing. It is a wonderful thing. But you keep him in mind all the time. Not yourself, him. And you really should fear when you start keeping yourself in mind all the time instead of God. Then you should fear. Because then that means you're out on your own taking care of yourself, and you've told him, I don't want you to take care of me. I'll take care of myself. How lonely would that feel? Wow. I can't remember doing that since 1969, 1970. It's been that long that I haven't said those words. Terry, did you have anything else you want to continue on the subject?
No, you've brought out some really good information. I've taken a page full of notes already.
Well, that's good.
Thank you.
And but Terry's very good at expressing himself in writing. Haven't seen a blog in a little while.
I have one I am working on. Actually, I've rewritten it and retitled it, and it's actually going in a lot better direction. So I'll try to have it up this weekend.
Very good.
I'm willing.
Now, wait a minute. Don't go away. The name of your program, you and Scotty, what do you call it? A vlog or a podcast? What do you call it?
It's a video cast. It's like a podcast is audio, we're video. So we're a video cast, and it's Sacred Odyssey. It's a Sacred Odyssey video cast. If you put that in on YouTube, you'll find it, because there's some other Sacred Odyssey games I didn't know was out there. But we've got 2 videos up now. And
what's the full title?
Sacred Odyssey, an intellectual and spiritual quest.
Yes. And they're pretty cool to watch, guys. They're really good. And I know if you have questions, you can send them to them. And they put links on their videos to the books they get everything from. So everybody can go by themselves and go read it and verify everything if you feel like you have to do that. You guys are doing a good job. And the new one's up, I guess, now, right? You just put a new one up.
Yeah, we have that, and we have another one that'll probably come up here pretty soon, too, that we've already done as well.
Great. Yeah. And anybody should share that with your friends. They're doing a good job, and they're doing it different. They're targeting, actually, people that are still believers and leaders that have not yet become Noahides, leaders of congregations and individuals. But they're doing it not in the way that, in an evangelical way. They're doing it in a, let's learn something new. Let's learn the truth. And it's a great way to do it. I love it. It's really, really good. And by the way, Shira, Torah for the Nations Women's Gathering, she's still in Texas, as I mentioned at the beginning. But she did pre-record 3 sessions. And the first one's out already. I posted it at the time she was supposed to do it. I forget the title. The Naked Truth. That's what it was. The Naked Truth. It's about tzniut. It's about modesty. And the next 2, she has a guest with her, Rabbanit Esther Berkowitz, who used to teach on that. And she's going to be, they do a couple of programs together. So Shira should be back, I guess, at the end of July. I mean, she's coming back here July 15th, 16th. But the next live broadcast, I think it's the last Saturday of July. So, fear of God, the levels of fear of God. Always remember there's levels. It's not enough just to fear punishment. You have to fear. The only way I can put it in my own words is fear disappointing God. And how do you get over that? By learning what to do that he wants you to do so you don't disappoint him or yourself. And you do the things he wants. And how do you do that? You learn what it is he wants you to do. Then before you do anything, you say, is this one of the things God wants me to do? Does he really want me to yell at this person? Does he really want me to be nasty to this person to make this person feel bad don't work. That's not what he wants, and we know it. But sometimes there's a part of us that will not allow things to go by. Someone gets you, you got to get them. Someone is nasty to you, you got to be nasty to them. You got to remember it. You ask your neighbor to borrow a lawnmower and he says no. You know he's got a beautiful lawnmower sitting in his garage. And then comes snow time, he comes over and says, "Can I borrow your snowblower?" And you can't say to yourself, "I'm not going to give him my snowblower because he didn't give me his lawnmower." You can't do that. That's holding a grudge. So there's all kinds of things that go deeper and deeper and deeper into this. But the main thing, and what Terry is talking about, or I guess my duty and service is Sheva Mitzvot in all their details. That's you? That's your quote. Okay.
Yes.
That's beautiful because that is our duties. King Solomon agrees with what you said. Fear God and do his commandments. That makes you a complete person. A lot of other sages agree with this quote. My duty and service is to Sheva Mitzvot in all their details. Absolutely. Absolutely is the way it is. Okay. I don't, to roll on to the another subject, if anybody has any questions, just let's put them in the chat room or tell me you want to use the mic. And I didn't even look if there were any comments. Rabbi Karparov. Oh, Rabbi Karparov wrote in anthropomorphism. Okay. There we go. Announcement, we're meeting as Righteous of the Nations in Kelowna City Park, Kelowna, BC, September 13th. Everyone, welcome. Good. You ought to put it on all your local bulletin boards for the neighborhood or whatever it is and get the word out. So, yeah, that's good. I want to roll into something else for just a minute here. And that's about how are you going to get together a community? Nobody wants to do the work to put a community together, but everybody wants a community. You know, a friend of mine who is a Messianic and has had for the last 10 or 15 years a congregation up in New Jersey. He calls me yesterday because he does pay me. I have a web hosting service and I make a little bit of money on that, enough to cover the bills so I can put my own websites and stuff up there for free. And he's one of my regular customers. And he says, we need to change where we connect to the server from. We have very strict rules on the server that we use so people can't get in and hack things and all. So he had to change his IP address. Don't want to get real technical, but I had to do that for him. I have to physically change that for him. So he says, we're now in Kannapolis, North Carolina or South Carolina, one of the Carolinas. I said, what are you doing down there? You guys have been up in New Jersey for like 15 years. He said, yeah, we got fed up. He says, let me tell you what happened. We decided because of all the violence and all the stuff going on, we decided about 6 months ago, we're getting out of New Jersey. He says, but let me tell you what happened a month ago during the Corona thing. New Jersey put on all kinds of regulations about who can gather and how they have to gather. And they have a gathering on Shabbat, and then they're Messianic. It's a denomination of Christianity. But he said in the middle of the Torah service, the police came in and shut them down. And he said, and we had fulfilled everything we were supposed to fulfill. Everybody had masks on. Everybody had social distancing. Everything was the right way. And we fulfilled everything, but they shut us down anyway. He says, I can't stand it anymore. I got to get out of here. They had already put into this whole thing that the whole congregation moved down to Kannapolis. The whole congregation. I don't know how many families there are. They packed up their vehicles and they moved. and they sold homes, got new homes. Some of them were working for companies that they could transfer for, like Firestone, chain store and stuff like that. They could just ask for transfers to different places. And some of them are just starting over again in a new place. Why? The reason is that they're moving away from where they are, where they had a nice little community, and they're starting at the community in another place. And I'm thinking to myself, that's community. It doesn't make any difference what they're believing in, what they're thinking, all that kind of stuff. It's community. And I do know people that have moved down to Houston because there is some type of community down there for Noahides, although not everybody agrees with exactly what's going on there, but that's okay. How do I build a community where I am right now, right here today? It's tough. It's really tough because a lot of people don't want to talk about it. They do everything in the closet. They don't want to lose their family. They don't want to lose their friends. So they just kind of closet Noahides. And I'm dealing with a couple now in Lithuania and another couple in Austria. And they're kind of upset that they don't have anybody to be with. Both of those are very Christian countries. And so I suggested something to them. And I may have talked about this last week, I don't know, or on Monday night. I suggested them doing kind of a little formalizing a Erev Shabbat meal and just doing it in their home, inviting God in and sitting down with them and him being there. That's the whole point, that his presence is there in the house. It adds spiritually, it adds to the peace of the house. And do it a few times yourself so you get the whole feeling of it. And then invite another couple, or maybe two couples. If you have two, you can invite. It doesn't make any difference what they believe. Just invite them over. And what you should do when they come in is you light candles. And I think in Brit Shalom in the prayer book, there's probably candle lighting. I haven't got my hard copy yet. I've asked for it a couple of times, but they haven't sent it from Jerusalem. But there's probably a lighting candles prayer there. If there's not, then just let me know. I can give one. You can use the Jewish one. You just you're commanded to do it out of there because you're not commanded.
You said Brit Shalom. Are you talking about Brit Shalom or Brit Olam?
The prayer book was Brit Olam.
Yes. Hold on a second here. Scott,
Okay.
You got yours handy real quick?
And then if you want, you can say a little blessing over wine or over bread if you want. And when they ask you what you're doing, you can give simple explanations. I'm welcoming God into the house for his Sabbath, because he told us we're supposed to remember it. So we're remembering it's his Sabbath. And blessing over the wine is their blessings over certain foods. Simple. There's blessing over wine, blessing over bread. You don't have to go through all the rituals involved. But the people see that you're connected with God, and they should feel when they come in the door, first of all, if you've cooked a meal in the house smells beautiful. It has a Shabbat smell to it. And they will identify immediately, wow, this house smells good. There's a peaceful atmosphere here. And it's nice. And then when you sit down to have dinner, you don't talk politics. You don't talk coronavirus. You don't talk anything that's controversial. I'm going to knock this over for sure, this little lamp. It's a peaceful evening. And if the person wants to bring up corona or politics, or they want to do an adversarial debate or talk adversarially with one another, and it's fun, some people like to do that, you simply tell them this is one day of the week we don't do that. We don't debate, we don't argue, and we don't have adversity one way or the other on God's Shabbat. And that's what we do. So they're going to pick up on this peaceful time. They're going to feel it. Invite them once, and then maybe a month later, invite them again. And then they may want to invite you back to their home. I don't know. That's up to them. But you don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't have to invite a whole big crowd of people. But just invite people into the beautiful presence of the God of Israel. And what they feel when they come in your house. You know, I walked in the house today. I went out and ran around, did a little grocery shopping, which I've been out of the house since Thursday. So I did it today. I went out to start my car, wouldn't start. Boom, dead in a doornail. So I had to get a new battery. My car's a 2013. I bought it 2 years ago. I don't know how long ago they changed the battery, but it was dead. Anyway, I did the grocery shop and I came back in the house. And you know what the first thing that hit me when I walked in the house? There's no smell of something being cooked in this house. The house just smells like a house, you know, and all the stuff in the house. There's no atmosphere in the house. I thought, oh boy, that's my fault, because Shira's out of town and I haven't cooked anything. Well, I did. I made some French fries. That's all I made since she's been gone. But I realized that's it, the way the house smells and the way that it feels is up to the wife or the woman of the house. And when she's not there, the house suffers as well as the husband. And if they're kids, they suffer too. But when people walk into your home, they should feel the warmth and feel the silence, not the silence, the serenity. That's the word I'm looking for in your home. Now, with some people, that's hard because all of you know people that the husband and wife have an adversarial type relationship. They never even speak nice to one another. And you say, how can they be married? But they like that. Okay, that's what makes them a couple. And it's tough for me to be around people like that. It just embarrasses me to listen to them talking to each other like that. And they don't talk nasty or anything, and use bad words. It's just adversarial all the time. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do it so much that when I put a post up on Facebook, anywhere on Facebook of our Facebook website, of Facebook groups or private pages, if anybody puts anything adversarial up there, I never reply to it. I just delete it. Just delete it. I don't make posts so people can play games. I don't make posts and I don't teach so people can do whatever they want, say whatever they want, and say, well, I think this and that. Well, I just really don't care what they think. And so when they put something good on there, it's fine. I'll give it a like or whatever. But when they put up something that's adversarial, it usually draws more adversity, somebody else who's trying to defend what you put up to the other person. So anything I read on I just delete them, period. And you guys should too, really. There's no reason to get into that kind of negative thinking. We're focused on God. God is positive. He's always there. He's always with us. Angela says, we did that, but they didn't come back. They are so Christian, doing it again this Shabbat, see how it happens. And with these people, other people, all I can do is let Hashem guide me. Yes. There's no prayer after lighting candles on Shabbat. Scotty, you didn't find anything? Okay. Wow. I'm going to have to ask Rabbi Sherbow why there's no prayer for that.
I'm not saying it's not there. I couldn't find it.
Okay. Well, Amuela says the same thing. So maybe they're, she says, lighting Shabbos candles, just prayer requests. Okay. I have to write that down. And Scotty, I didn't forget about what you told me about Sfriyab, and I'm still working on that, but I understand why it is what you found the other day, but I'll talk to you that personally. But
The issue with the prayer with the candles may be that is a Jewish tradition or Jewish commandment of some sort, and maybe that's the reason why they stay away from that for the Noahides. So
yeah, I agree. That could be the reason.
that might be the reason. I'm just saying it could be.
Yeah, it could be the reason. But if you're supposed to remember the Shabbat, we're supposed to keep it. You're supposed to remember it. And remembering the Shabbat was probably doing a little bit of candle lighting and stuff, and doing a little blessing over the wine. And so I'll have to ask Rabbi Sherbow.
And if I remember right, the candle lighting, since it's done at 18 minutes, is also to prevent from lighting a fire on the Shabbat. So that's tied to that mitzvah as well for the Jews.
No, that's true. So, and there's no requirement on that. You can wait till the people come. It can be dark. It doesn't make any difference.
For us, there is no requirement.
Right. So, I'm going to get information on that. There's a lot of things that, especially since there's a lot of things that you can do and are adapted for the Noahides, for the righteous of the nations. It kind of leaves me a big question about why there isn't a candle lighting thing there. So anyway, the point is, you invite people over, and yes, that's good. Angela says she lights candles all the time when people come over on Shabbat. And you can say it's in remembrance of God's Sabbath. It's real easy. It was the day God rested. I'm lighting this so he remembers that I am remembering. He knows that I'm remembering. One of the things that you have to stay away from is talking about religion. Brit Olam has the candle. Okay. Thank you, Martha, for that. Very good. I was pretty sure I saw it. I just don't discuss religion with the people. You might take a passage from the Bible and give an explanation in the proper explanation way, not the Christian interpretation of it. And you don't invite a discussion on it. You just say, here's some information from the Hebraic, from the Jewish way of thinking, and just give a little something for them to think about, but by no means talk about religion. Don't do it. Even if they want to. Say, look, we didn't invite you over to talk about your religion or our religion. We both believe in God. And you can then give some simple reading or something that a passage you like, and if you really want to get into something, you can say, well, look, this week in the Jewish synagogues they're reading this particular part of the 5 books of Moses, and I was reading it too, and look what I found. And there's usually some little thing you can talk about in that, so you can use that for just connection purposes. Just connection purposes. Go ahead, Scotty.
Rabbi Pesach, Martha is correct. It is on page 78. It's just not listed under a position of lighting Shabbos candles. It just says welcoming the Sabbath.
Right, welcoming the Sabbath. I said remembering God's Sabbath. Okay, and welcoming the Sabbath. I would, if I'm doing it in front of people that don't know any better, if I wasn't Jewish, I'd say that I do this in remembrance of God's Sabbath. That's all. Because it was the 7th day and he rested, and I'm remembering that the 7th day he rested. Who can argue with that? There's no debate there. There's no argument there, right? So anyway, in any way that I can help anyone, or Shira can help anyone, talk to somebody, you want to have a little private conversation with let us know. We'll be more than happy. We'll open a Zoom room and we can talk with people if they want information. And Martha read the whole book. Way to go, Martha. So anyway, what Shira and I are trying to do is to help people not only understand what it's all about, but to how to build a community. And it hurts me terribly that people get hurt because they believe in the one true God. Their families, even some of their siblings, their parents. I did post on my Facebook page, I may have posted it someplace else too, very interesting, what's the guy's name? Wolf, something Wolf. It says up there, let me go find it so I can tell you what it is. It says, the true face of the missionaries is revealed. And click on that. There's 45 minutes of there. And first of all, he talks about Corona and stuff. That's about the first half. The second half, and if you go to his YouTube page, is an interview with a lady that used to be a very, very active Christian evangelist. Her whole life was that. She grew up with a father that taught her that's all she's supposed to do her whole life. And it's an amazing story. She's, of course, now, why not? When she investigated the truth, she converted. She's an Orthodox Jew. She lives in Israel. Her son and daughter are getting ready to serve in the Israeli Defense Forces. But the part of her story, I'm going to give a little bit of a spoiler, and I loved it. She would talk to Jews and quote verses from the Bible, and they said, "You're reading it wrong. You don't understand. You're reading it wrong." And she got told so many times, she decided to go investigate for herself instead of just believing what she was told. During her investigations, she found out, wow, the Jewish stuff's the right stuff. And she started changing her pattern a little bit. And she called up her dad, who was 50 years doing this stuff, and said, "Hey, you know what? I can't do it anymore. I'm going to be Jewish." And he got into her about, what are you going to join a cult? And you're going to, he says, "I'm coming over to your house." So he came over the next evening and they sat down together, and he got tired. She got tired. So she says, "Look, I'm going to bed. We'll talk more tomorrow." He went to the guest room. And at 2 a.m, he came and woke her up and said, "You know what? You're right. You discovered the truth." And she says, "Well, I'm converting." He says, "Well, I can't do that. I'm too old for that. But I'm going to become," and he became a Noahide after that. He did know, he learned and became a Noahide after that. It's 18 or 20 minutes video. It's at the end of this one that I have on my page. I may have put it up on B'nai Noach page also, if you remember there, Torah for the Nations. Listen to this young lady. Well, I say young, I don't know how old she is, but she's a lot younger than I am, I'm sure. Listen to her and how she says it and how she talks about it. And I'm trying to remember the guy's name, but when you click on the link, it's something Wolf. I don't want to click on the link now. I don't want to end up messing up what's going on with YouTube and everything. Not YouTube, but Facebook and stuff. So anyway, amazing stories happen. Just absolutely amazing stories. And I ask you guys, you should read those stories. They're so encouraging. They're so uplifting. People find the truth by going to disprove it. And it's pretty neat. It really is. Anyway, if anybody wants any help with anything, wants some meetings and stuff, get a hold of myself, get a hold of Shara. We're more than happy to help out with these things. And I started off the program by saying why I don't, and we tried one time to open a book and go through it chapter by chapter. It just doesn't work out, and other people are doing it anyway. So we address different topics that need addressing and questions like this. And I read a lot of posts on Facebook and different blogs and different groups. Some of them I just won't bother to reply to because they don't need my opinion. That's all they're going to think. Well, you can think that, and I'll think this, and everything's going to be fine. But people are looking for the truth. I'm always willing to work with, because there is only one truth. Just like 2 and 2 is 4. There's just one God, and He is the truth. Oh, Dan, you there? Anybody else have anything you want to say tonight? Anybody? Anything else? Because we're gonna.
I'm here, Pastor. You just mentioned about trying to walk away from debates and things like that. I mean, isn't it fun sometimes? I'm the type of guy who doesn't mind mixing it up to get to the bottom of the truth. Like you say, it's about the truth and getting to the bottom of the truth. But I find there are always, and I get to chat with a lot of rabbis, so it's a joy. But I find there are instances, specifically in the unknown or something humanity hasn't discovered yet, that we know Hashem knows what it's all about and what's there and what its purpose is. I think about the days of when life was more simple, say pre-automobile. But then you can go back even further, pre-coal, pre-industrial revolution, pre-this, pre-that, pre-printing press. Imagine life in pre-printing press. Even further back, how the Torah goes back, Iron Age, Bronze Age, right to, the time of Moses would have been, the Bronze Age. And when you think about things that humanity is coming to understand, I find there's a ton of views. Now, I just ordered a book from a fellow down in Florida who's got a book that covers, he's a rabbi down in Miami, and he's got a book that answers gives a Torah position on a lot of questions like aliens or say ghosts and things of this nature, things that are considered paranormal or abstract, but people have ideas that they want to know. They want answers. They want solutions. Now, I know coming out of Israel, we're getting straight goods with Torah, but when it comes to certain matters, there are plenty of them. The rabbis the majority hasn't weighed one way or the other. And I find myself drawn to things of that nature in order to grow, not to argue or fight, but to grow. And, even when I met Terry, in a group, an online group a couple of years back, I butted heads with the one rabbi fellow because I've studied to death on the flood, the question of the flood, pursuing, and you can't unlearn what you know. When you actually know it beyond, reasonable doubt, with the highest degree of probability, and you meet somebody who believes a totally different way on something. I mean, how do we find true unity in our uniqueness? I mean, I love how you're talking about, just drop the drama. Don't, hang up on somebody who's just, being antagonistic or starting a fight. We see too many trolls. I mean, it's just been something that's gone on for far too long on social media. But can you elaborate anything along those lines?
Yeah, sure. Look, everything is, you talked about ghosts, paranormal. It's all mentioned in Torah. It's all there. It exists. Magic exists. All these things exist. Otherwise, God wouldn't have wasted time telling us, don't do it. Don't use that kind of stuff. Do you want to know if it exists? Yes, it exists. Can you do it? Yes. There's even examples in Torah of it being used. One very blatant example is when Shaul went to the witch and wanted to talk to Samuel.
Conjure the spirit, yeah.
Right. So we know this exists. the paranormal exists. Would you call angels paranormal? You know, they're in a whole nother realm. There's another dimension. There's other things around besides us. We just haven't learned them yet. To explore those and learn them, that's great. That's part of knowledge. That's fine. But when we do that, we have to make sure it's balanced. In other words, the other part of knowledge we're supposed to have in God and doing his service has to be taken care of. Then we can roll over to the other things. And it's great. Of course, people, we're individuals. We're each of us has our own way of looking at things. And by the way, if someone's with me one-on-one, sitting in front of me, and they want to debate, I'll debate all they want. I just won't do it in public. It invites trolls. It invites all kinds of stuff. But I have a good friend of mine. I've known him for 30 years. He's Messianic. He lives here in Israel. And he's Jewish. And I try to bring him, wake him up from the fog he's in, and we'll debate for hours on things. And I love doing it. It's fun. We know, and our wives know, if we get together, there's going to be a debate. And he might get angry at me, or I might get angry at him, but it's not real anger. It's just like, okay, it's more like frustration. Yes, all these things are a part of life. And as we're supposed to be individuals, because if God didn't want individuals, we wouldn't have been born individuals.
Right, cookie cutter.
A cookie cutter, robot, production line, whatever you want to call it, yes. So what I'm saying is, the public face you put on Facebook, if you want to do that kind of thing, that's fine. I don't get into it because I don't like there's some pretty nasty people out there, in short. The public has gotten used to shaming people, what they think is shaming people. That's so stupid, and I just stay away from all that stuff. And a lot of people get into Lashon Hara about other people. And so I just pass on it. But yes, I know I've read some of your stuff about the flood, and I know people love different things, and why not? We don't have to be, God didn't say everybody line up on their own and be the same. Why would he create us to be the same? He has different things. Each one of us, you, me, everybody listening, everybody on this planet is only born for one reason. You have an individual thing to do for your creator. And we've all been through that. Oh, why was I created? What was my purpose in life? We've all been through those stages when we were in our teens or 20s or something like that.
Well, I find the Hebrew viewpoint on that verse that says to bring them up in the way that they should go, and when they're older, they won't depart from it. If you came out of the Christian mindset, they looked at that as, no, you've got to whack them into position and structure them down a certain path. Whereas from my understanding, the Hebrew understanding is that no, the child has a natural bent, a natural disposition, things that they're attracted to, things that they're desirous of, things that motivate them. And you should instruct them in those things, because when they're old, they're going to go back to them. They're going to, they have a propensity to learn in a certain way, or the uniqueness that Hashem has made of them.
Exactly. No, that's a very good point. How many times have you heard somebody say, well, I always wanted to be a dancer, so my child's going to be a dancer. I always want to play piano, so my child's going to play the piano.
Yeah,
you let the child, sports parents, yes. It's just, everyone has to follow their natural thing, or else find out what they think is their natural thing really isn't. That's not what they're supposed to do with their life. But you don't try to force them into a mold. You help them investigate who they are and why they were created. And when we are told to raise up the children so they don't depart from the ways, it's basically how they treat God. But we find that everybody reaches a stage in their life where they're going to depart from the ways for a little while anyway. Some of them get embarrassed and come back, and some stay out a little longer because they're more embarrassed and they just don't want to face anybody and things like that. But if we as parents and we as people let other people see the way we act and we interrelate with God, we're giving them a choice and letting them know there's more than one choice. Now, we're not telling you yours is bad, but we're telling you, listen a minute, maybe there's something better. We're kind of seed planting. But I agree with you 100%.
That statement you just made, I think that ties in nicely with how you said about, starting a group, bring some people over, but you got to be that real, right? You got to be just come across as who you really are, and be kind, be generous. And this is what I love most about the Shabbat Mitzvot. There's no fuss, no muss, no drama, but you can shine within that framework so greatly. Just open your mind, open who you are, love Hashem, and it's just amazing.
Absolutely. When Sharon and I first started checking this out, this is no secret, we've said it before, the reason we started checking it out after she converted is she has 6 kids, and she has 14 or 18 grandchildren. She's in Texas visiting them right now. And she says, they're not going to convert. What's going to happen to them? I know the truth, but they're not going to go through what I went through to convert. And we started looking up what happens to people. What happens? What goes on? Why, what happens to the other 99.8% of the world? And we first came across the Noahide stuff, and we just shook our heads.
I did too. A number of years ago. Yeah, I did too.
It took us about a year to really understand and get into it. And it took us another couple of years or 3 years till we could hook up with the organization that we did a lot of research on Noahide organizations. And Noahide World Center in Jerusalem, when we came, and there's no coincidence. Everything's a God incident, right? But I knew immediately when I talked to Rabbi Goldberg and I looked at their website and I saw the recommendation letters from the top rabbis in all of Israel recommending them and their writings. And I said to myself, this is the way we have to go. We finally found it after all these years. We've been kind of kicking it alone. And some other organizations, at least 2 other big organizations about the Noahides, they were more interested in well, let's just put it this way. They have good writings, they publish good books, but when I talked to the leaders of them about coming in to work with them, it was like, okay, well, you just be one of us now, and we'll use you the way we want to use you. And I said, no, thank you. That's not me. Torah for the Nations has been around a long time. It's not going anywhere. We have people that are involved with Torah for the Nations. What we want to do is come in and you teach us, certify us, let people know who we are too, and we work with you. I would never, ever come and teach something that goes against something Rabbi Sherbow says. His stuff is so good. And I've tied with him, and so has Scotty and Terry that got the teaching certificates already. That's why they're out teaching. Anybody else that wants to get involved with the teaching, let me know. And they've also done the pledge, the Noahide pledge. And it's just, we're on an exciting trip now. A very exciting trip.
Well, it's like pioneering. It's like pioneering at this juncture.
Yes. And I'm hoping, look, it's happened before. Wendell Jones, Jim Long, Sam Peake, and they burned out, essentially. I mean, I'm not saying that he stopped being Noahides. Even today, Jim is he works with Chaim Richman a lot, Rabbi Chaim Richman. But you get so frustrated talking to people sometimes. It's getting them to open up their eyes and realize the way of thinking has to change. You have to get rid of this whole thinking of denominationalism and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I found an old adage, that says when something fresh, something new, something undiscovered, especially when we live in a day and age where cognitive dissonance is so prevalent. The nasty thing is people have a terrible tendency to go through three stages. And the first stage is absolute disbelief. They just don't believe it, absolute disbelief. And then the second stage, believe it or not, is vehement opposition. They literally, after they just won't hear it, they get vehemently opposed to it. And then the third stage is they accept it as though it's self-evident. And I find with being a B'nai Noach, coming to this understanding out of Christianity, I mean, there's a gut-wrenching opposition to not let go of certain beliefs. And, no matter how sound some people speak about certain things, unless Hashem turns on the switch, Hashem turns on the switch, one person's not going to just get it in entirety. I mean, I had to read a lot of material for a lot of years, and even just a few years ago when I met, say, Terry Hayes and a few others, all I can say is, just to hear people talk about the definition of sin from a different angle. Not that they're promoting. I mean, I find coming out of Christianity, whenever you disagreed, they'd all of a sudden start attacking that you were promoting something, vile, and that's not the case. Look at more alternatives, look at more options. When I met the rabbis, especially when I met Rabbi Goldberg, there was an honest integrity to speak with kindness and share the truth of Torah. And it's like, well, how can you go wrong? If it's there, it's there. And, just sitting and learning. I've learned for 32 years as an adult, digging and studying, and yet to hear even over the last year, him share things I've never heard a pastor share. It's just not there, and yet it's simple, and it's pure, and it's clean, and it's Torah.
Exactly. Plus, you can ask whatever question you want. You're going to get a truthful answer, but you can ask whatever you want. You're not told just to have faith, or you don't have enough faith, or something like that.
And I found some doozy questions. You get some doozy questions out there. I've met some honorable people, even rabbis, very smart, intelligent rabbis that won't speak off the cuff. They'll say, you know what, I'm going to ask someone about that and get back to you. And there's integrity there. And it just, it shines.
Right. We need to know, see and if you read the sayings of the fathers, you understand. We have a chain of evidence. Just like in a crime scene, how do you handle the pieces of things you find at the crime scene, and how to go all the way up to the lab, and how it ends up in front of the judge. And if anything is wrong in that chain of evidence, it gets tossed out. That's what we do. We're not allowed to give our own opinion. We're allowed only to take from what we've already learned and what everybody else has learned and present it. Now, there are rabbis out there that present their own opinion, and you when you hear them, you know who they are.
And then there's specialists as well.
Yeah, then there are people who are specialists. There's always specialists in every little area. Unfortunately, there are not a whole lot of specialists in Noahide.
Well, this is what I love about the Noahide World Center. Rabbi Shirky is really being a specialist in Noahide. Rabbi Goldberg is,
true. They're bringing out and they're doing it the best way I've seen to cover all the bases
and simplify it. And without, because there's some, like everybody, most Noahides for a few years, I know I've read the Divine Code, and it's weighty. It's a lot to digest. But when you look at the Brit Shalom book, it's clear and concise and easy access. It's not that there's any controversy. I find Rabbi Weiner in the Divine Code gets into very much the same matters, but he gets in a lot deeper for those that want to study. But those that, I need to understand the basics. It's a great framework without any extra fluff.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I like, I've read Rabbi Shirky's. And by the way, I keep being told next week it's going to be available for sale. So I'm hoping by the end of this week, it's going to be available.
Well, I
for sale.
redid some covers for them a couple weeks ago, so they're thinking for English. I don't know where it's going, and who knows. So, I mean, yeah, they're eager. They were looking at, different publishers I know of over here in the West specifically, but I know that the ones that are there in Israel, I think they're on the bubble of wanting to give a better product. Not that it'll be any different. I mean, I'm satisfied with, pen and ink and that it's, just there. And yeah, I think it's an exciting work.
I have copies of all the latest edited works in PDF. Yeah, digital. But I they ask you don't share them around and read it. If you find anything needs changing, some editing stuff. But they do have a link, and it's on B'nai Noach Connection with Israel. It's to a course that is free that you can take. That's essentially based on that one's called Brit Olam,
Shalom.
right? Brit Shalom. Okay.
Covenant of Peace.
Yeah, the Brit Shalom, the Covenant of Peace. So you can learn and go through the thing, and it's free. You just sign up. They don't ask for a credit card, don't ask for nothing. Just go through it, and he's got it there. And I love it because it's simple. It's so easy to understand. It's just point blank. Here it is. Now you want to get into. You're the kind of person who wants to have all the little teeny details and all that kind of stuff. You can certainly buy the version of Dr. Shulman and Rabbi Moshe Weiner, the Divine Code. They're at volume 3, but that to me is more like a reference book. It's not something, if you want to know some details about something, you can go to it, but it's not one that you should, to me, the simplest is easiest to do every day in your life.
Yeah.
And I think,
and that's where the rubber meets the road. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what Noahide World Center, Rabbi Shirky and Rabbi Goldberg, that's what they're doing.
Well, I find Rabbi Shirky uses some wonderful words like inappropriate. He's not saying it's prohibited, but it's inappropriate. And where it might be prohibited for a Jewish person, it's definitely inappropriate if you get the point of what he's saying. Inappropriate. It doesn't say you can't do it or it's prohibited, and you get the true heart of the matter. Is there's a big difference between certain words, and I know that when something's prohibited for a Jewish person, they take it very serious and walk accordingly. This is prohibited. B'nai Noach, they need to understand there's a lot of things that do connect to the Sheva mitzvot, and certain behaviors are gray and inappropriate. But why are they inappropriate? Morally, it's inappropriate. You shouldn't be asking that question, but it gives you the place where your mind can say, I stand before Hashem. It's inappropriate. Don't do it. And it wakes you up in those simple words. He selected some wonderful words for it.
Yes, it's very good work, and I'm excited about it. I know people want to buy it and give it to their kids and their grandkids and everything else, and we're excitingly waiting for the product. Now, they already have it out in Russian and in some other languages. It's already been done. But let me tell you, in Russia and some other countries, in South American countries, in the Philippines, they have huge groups of people. I mean, in Russia, I think there's at least one whole village or town that became Noahites. In the Philippines, whole villages become Noahites. They don't have. America has this little bit of a special problem.
Wealth brings its own issue,
Well, that's true, but there's also the problem that the Western Christian thinking. It's not even European Christian. It's just the Western Christian thinking, and when people decide to become Noahites, they realize they have to even change that, and that makes it tough for them. It makes it tough, and we're here to help anybody that needs help with that, to get through what a lot of people want to get through, and just have that connection of personal relationship with the Creator, with Hashem, with the God of Israel. And it makes you part of Israel. And some people get confused about Israel the nation and Israel the people. And the land of Israel over here is one thing, and the people that believe in the God of Israel is something different. And once you connect with the God of Israel, and you don't have to live here in Israel, but if you connect with the God of Israel, you become part of that nation, that people that believe in him and totally trust in him. And that's all you need right now. I mean, if tomorrow morning, there's a lot of you listening to my voice. Tomorrow morning, if we wake up and the Mashiach's here in Israel and he's getting ready to take the throne, he's going to say, okay, all you Jews and all you Noahides that have declared yourself formally in front of Israel, come, you may live here now. Nobody else is going to be allowed to be here. So that's what's good about doing that. You've actually declared your allegiance to him and to his people. And so we all become one. Everybody, all of us here you guys are Noahides, I'm Jewish. So what? We're all one. We're a part of the one. And anybody can join in that wants to. There's nothing else. There's only one reality. Walking with God is a reality. It is not a religion. And what I love, and I was still looking for Jewish encyclopedia, because when I looked up and found the thing about fear, they start off the paragraph with, understand that religion is the outgrowth of reality. In other words, they've taken everything God gave us and turned it into some kind of religion somewhere around the world. So what they've done is they've done knockoffs, in my words. Christianity's a knockoff. Islam's a knockoff. They're all knockoffs. But if you're a Noahide, and if you're Jewish, and if you're part of Israel, you've got the real deal thing. Anything else?
Can I throw a final thought in here, Rabbi?
You absolutely may, my dear friend.
Now I'm going to talk about a dream I had. You know how I do with dreams. So am I allowed to do that? Can I do that?
Of course, yes.
I had a dream years ago, and incidentally, the man that came to me in this dream looked a lot like you, Rabbi Pesach. So I was looking for something to write with, and I couldn't find anything. And then this gentleman walked up to me that looked a lot like Rabbi Pesach and said, here, I've got a pen. And I looked and I said, oh, I bet that writes beautifully. Can I use it? And he said, no, it's the Creator's pen. You can't use it, but you can be used by it. So through that, I got this thought that, let's stop using the Creator for our benefit and allow him to use us for his glory. So just want to throw that in.
Wow. Well, that's a great way to end the program. That's great. That is a wonderful, wonderful way to say things, Scotty. And that is so true. When we allow him to use us, wow, there is no better way to live life. Absolutely. I love it. You always got these stories. I love your stories. If you guys have, Scotty does almost every morning a little 2 or maybe 2.5 minute, 1.5 minute little thing when he's out walking around doing some work. And I'm going to start calling them Scottyisms. They're really good. And he tells some good stories that he's learned from his life experience. And you guys are going to find out that you can relate to a lot of the things he talks about. And it's really, really good. And we appreciate that, Scotty.
His questions are amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, there you go. So we know Hashem is always near and never far off.
Amen.
Are we going to call it a night then?
Yes. If nobody has anything else they want to say tonight.
Last chance.
We're going to call it a night.
All right. So Hashem willing.